Week 3 is almost in the books. We got the Sunday night game and 2 Monday night games to go, but we're going to recap the Sunday day games from a fantasy football perspective, looking at the box scores, talking about what I saw on Red Zone and all that stuff in between, so you can get a good idea of who the buys, sells, trades, whatever you need to do in your fantasy leagues. But before we dig in, you need to click that subscribe button right now, because soon we're going to be talking about the waiver wire for week 4. We're going to be helping you set your lineups later in the week, and we'll be deep diving the trending players with the You Need series every day this week as well. Click that button, stop missing out. But the first game we're looking at, Cowboys, Ravens. Ravens were up early in this game, really pushed the game script, and Dallas had to come back late, but they fell 28-25. Lamar Jackson, 182 yards passing in this contest, but Derrick Henry was the show with 151 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns. We got the volume out of him. Lamar Jackson getting it done on the ground with 87 yards and a touchdown. Justice Hill got a little bit of work, but nothing like week 1. Nelson Aguilar had that big play, showed off that speed. Charlie Collar got some action here. Rashad Bateman, 3 catches, 28 yards, and a touchdown. He just keeps getting a little bit of opportunity each week, but not enough to go off. Zay Flowers busted in your fantasy lineups. But going over here to the Cowboys side, Dak Prescott, 379 yards, 2 touchdowns, played behind most of the game. The running backs for the Cowboys not looking good, as you see here, and it's been like this all season long. Plus, they were playing from behind. Jake Ferguson back from the injury, 6 balls for 95 yards. CeeDee Lamb getting his opportunity. Turpin caught that touchdown at the end of the game. Jalen Tolbert getting workload with 5 targets here in this matchup. And we're getting a lot of guys used in the passing game. Brandon Cooks, 2 balls caught, 16 yards. All in all, Cowboys were trailing. They were trying to catch up late in the game and couldn't get it to happen. Next game is Browns and Giants, and it was the Malik Neighbors show. He was going off again this week. 8 catches, 78 yards, and 2 touchdowns. 12 targets. He had 18 targets last week. Wan'Dale Robinson saw 8 targets, caught 7 balls for 61 yards, so he probably went off on a lot of people's benches and waiver wires. Tyrone Tracy got a little bit of look in the passing game, catching 2 balls for 17 yards. Devin Singletary, 4 catches for 43 yards. Singletary also had 65 rushing yards and a touchdown. Tyrone Tracy, you may want to watch him going forward as a handcuff for this team, but he does have some pop in the step from what we saw back in college at Purdue. Daniel Jones got 20 rushing yards and passed for over 200 yards, really slinging the rock to Malik Neighbors with those 2 touchdown grabs. Deshaun Watson almost hit 200 yards passing, 2 touchdowns here. Jerome Ford, a little bit of work, but not much to get anything done for you in fantasy. Amari Cooper went off with 2 touchdowns, caught 7 balls, 86 yards, and 12 touchdowns. What we're seeing from him every week is he's getting a lot of workload. This week he got a lot of workload. He got a good target share, and he reeled it in. There's going to be some matchups and some games where Deshaun Watson doesn't hit Amari Cooper, and there's some games where he's going to explode just due to the workload that we're seeing every matchup. Jerry Jeudy busted for you in fantasy. Elijah Moore didn't do too great. Cedric Tillman got a little bit of run here. But the story was Malik Neighbors and Amari Cooper for the Browns and Giants. Now we're looking at Packers-Titans, 30-14. Packers get it done. Malik Willis gets the win over his former team. Will Levis not looking good. Malik Willis, though, getting it done on the ground. 6 carries, 73 yards, and a touchdown. He's great for fantasy football. Not really super great for real football, but he's getting the job done, and he's a very humble guy. Emmanuel Wilson getting some workload. Josh Jacobs getting some workload as well, splitting up the carries. Christian Watson, 2 catches, 67 yards. Jaden Reed, 4 catches, 50 yards, so you got your 9 fantasy points. Again, we weren't touching these wide receivers because it was very ambiguous going into this matchup. DeAndre Hopkins showing some signs of life here, catching 6 balls, 73 yards, and a touchdown. We haven't seen much out of him this year. Now we're starting to see him come back. And then also Tajay Spears, 4 balls caught, 54 yards. Looking at the rushing game here, nothing for the Tennessee Titans as they were playing behind early in this game. The story of this game was Malik Willis getting the job done on the ground and Will Levis not playing up to par. Colts beat the Bears 21-16. This is a battle of 2 bad quarterbacks. Caleb Williams showed a little bit of improvement, but he also had some bad plays here. We got a mix-up with the running backs and the touches here. Roschon Johnson, 8 carries, 30 yards. DeAndre Swift, 13 carries, 20 yards. Rome Odunze finally splashed on us with 6 catches for 112 yards and a touchdown. He was running a lot of routes last week. When we look at the spreadsheets this week, he's going to be running a lot of routes with a good route participation rate. 11 targets. You just had to give him time. I mean, time as in 3 games. Come on now. Odunze getting it done. DJ Moore's always getting opportunity with 10 targets. We're seeing Cole Kmet pop up here as well, getting 11 targets, 10 catches, 97 yards. Ball spreading around as Caleb Williams is starting to convert a little bit more. Remember, it's just his 3rd game. But we're also looking at Anthony Richardson, 10 of 20, a 50% completion rate, 167 yards, 2 picks. He also had that 1 pick in the end zone that you did not know where the ball was going. Jonathan Taylor scored 2 touchdowns. He's shown some good sign of life. And Alec Pierce keeps getting deep targets. It amounted to like 5 fantasy points, but he's getting the deep ball thrown his way, so he's going to splash in some games. Michael Pittman, 5 targets, 4 balls caught for 36 yards. Anthony Richardson's just killing it this year, and by killing it, I mean Michael Pittman's production. That being said, the rest of the wide receivers too aren't getting it done when it comes to production for fantasy football. The story here, Odunze splashing, Caleb Williams getting volume, showing you some up and downs. Anthony Richardson, man, it's looking ugly. One of the biggest stories in the early slate was Minnesota Vikings versus the Texans, and the Vikings got up early with Sam Darnold slinging the rock, letting everybody know he's here for keeps. Justin Jefferson going down here, 6 balls caught, 81 yards, and a touchdown. You got Jalen Naylor getting a touchdown, Aaron Jones getting that touchdown as well. On top of that, Aaron Jones rushing for 102 yards. The game script pulled for that. Ty Chandler got a little bit of work, but nothing for fantasy production. Cam Akers busted on a lot of rosters, but Cam Akers was just that guy you're starting for touches anyways, and we knew the downside was there. 9 carries, 21 yards. He'll get probably some workload next week if Mixon is out, so a guy you're probably keeping on your roster just in case until you hear more word, but if Mixon's back, you're cutting him. Stephon Diggs, 10 catches, 94 yards. Tank Dell, 5 catches, 62 yards. Nico Collins, 4 for 86, so they're splitting it up among these wide receivers. It's a trio here. 6 targets for Dell, 10 for Collins, and 12 for Diggs. The volume spreading around between those 3, and it's going to be a carousel from game to game. And you're looking at Darnold. He had a good day, 17 of 28, 181 yards and 4 touchdowns. Very efficient, getting it done in the air, getting it to stud pass catchers. Justin Jefferson doing well again, as always. And the Vikings took out the Houston Texans. CJ Stroud throwing some questionable interceptions early in this matchup. Like I said earlier, this was the highlight of the early slate. Eagles versus Saints. This one had a very high over-under, but really hit the under in this matchup as both defenses came to play. And there were some interceptions thrown in this matchup as both quarterbacks threw it to the other team. But we're looking at this matchup, and Saquon Barkley at the end of the game with that long touchdown run allowed the Eagles to get over the top. Dallas Goedert, 11 targets in this game, 170 yards, really going off. Devonta Smith had that nasty concussion. He got targeted 10 times, 7 catches, 79 yards. Got that working. Paris Campbell getting some work. Another name from the past. Chris Olave's here. Chris Olave being productive. Some people were leaving him out for dead, but he's back being productive, getting catches downfield. Alvin Kamara, 3 catches, 40 yards, on top of rushing for 87 yards. Derek Carr, 142 yards passing versus Jalen Hurts with 311. Hurts had some questionable throws in this matchup from what I saw in red zone, but really when you're looking at the volume here and the story of this game, Dallas Goedert getting volume, Devonta Smith getting that concussion. Jalen Hurts still producing it from a fantasy football standpoint with 25 rushing yards in the passing attempts. Saquon Barkley's got that juice. Chris Olave's back. Alvin Kamara's getting his. Steelers versus Chargers. This was pegged as a low-scoring affair. We only had 30 total points in this matchup. Justin Herbert, 125 passing yards, got hurt in this matchup. Justin Fields, 245 passing yards on top of just rushing 6 times for 6 yards. Made some big plays later in the game. Some tight throws downfield. J.K. Dobbins got work, but not fancy production through the ground, but caught 3 balls for 10 yards. Quentin Johnston got another touchdown. 2 catches, 44 yards, and a touchdown. The touchdown was off of busted coverage. Ladd McConkey got the work. He got 6 targets. They were trying to peg the slot, but they couldn't get it done. And they were up early in this game, but Pittsburgh came back for the win. George Pickens, 5 catches, 57 yards off 7 targets. Fields loves him, and you're starting Pickens every week because he's getting those targets deep downfield. Calvin Austin, surprise, surprise, with 4 catches, 95 yards off 5 targets. We got Patty Freiermuth, 4 catches for 33 yards. And we're looking at Najee Harris getting 70 yards on the ground while also catching 5 balls in this matchup. The story is Justin Fields coming out, Justin Herbert getting hurt, Quentin Johnston keeping the foot on the pedal. The Broncos shocked everybody by blowing out the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Bo Nix came out solid early in this game. The Bucs did not come to play. Baker Mayfield, 153 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Bucky Irving was the lighting moment for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with that big run. He had that good series in the middle of the game, rushing 9 times for 70 yards. Also getting some work in the passing game, but they were using Rachaad White a lot more in the passing game. Chris Godwin, another big day with 9 targets, 6 catches, and a touchdown. Courtland Sutton got the work, 11 targets, catching 7 of them for 68 yards. He's always getting work. He's always getting targets deep downfield. You can't always trust him, but he is getting deep balls. He is getting work, and that's going to line in some matchups here. Jordan Humphrey, the 2 games in a row where you're seeing him get work, so you may want to look at him. I don't want to call him out for the waivers, but you may want to look at him. That's 2 games in a row we're seeing him get work over the middle. Josh Reynolds got 2 targets. There's some games where he's going to get some upside here, but Troy Franklin, the sneaky play right here with 5 targets. The sneaky guy right there is Troy Franklin. Watch him going forward throughout the season. Bo Nix starting the game off hot and then playing well throughout the game. 47 rushing yards. Keeping the train moving is the story. Tampa Bay didn't come to play. But again, we're watching Bo Nix. He was hot in training camp. He was hot in preseason. A little bit of a slow start in the first 2 games, but he is a rookie. But he also played well in 2-minute drills. Bucky Irving looking good as a rookie. We got some bright spots in this matchup. Panthers and Raiders were the big story of the late slate with a 36-22 win of the Panthers, surprising everybody. And Andy Dalton was like one of the best quarterbacks of the day, throwing for 3 touchdowns, 26 for 37, 319 yards. Got Deontay Johnson the ball, and he caught 8 balls for 122 yards and a touchdown. Looking good. Chuba Hubbard got the workload. Miles Sanders was mixed in a little bit, but it was Chuba's game, and the Raiders allow a lot of fantasy points to running backs, so we were calling them out in the must-start, sneaky start videos. So Chuba Hubbard got that work, and he was getting to work last week. Xavier Legette had a target in the back of the end zone that was just missed from what I saw in red zone. Adam Thielen had a touchdown. Looked like he got banged up on that one. Zamir White is probably one of the suckers of this year's draft, as he's not getting workload, not scoring fantasy points for us. Trey Tucker, 7 catches, 96 yards. Jacoby Myers, 7 catches, 62 yards. Brock Bowers, a low point so far, 3 catches, 41 yards. Devontae Adams, 4 for 40. And we're looking at this team. Zamir White is the bust of fantasy football. Alexander Madison's probably going to start stealing his lunch. And the Raiders are going to have to throw the ball more. Plus, this was not the game script for Zamir White. If the Raiders did what they needed to do against the Panthers team that was laying eggs in the first 2 weeks of the season, then it would have been a good game script for them, but it just was not. Andy Dalton just giving the Panthers some light here is the major story, and now we got to take the Panthers seriously. Deontay Johnson, Chuba, Andy Dalton, and now you got to look more at Jonathan Brooks by the day. Watch that video I did on Jonathan Brooks just the other day so you can get some more information on him. The Dolphins-Seahawks matchup went the way we thought it was going to when we talked about it on live. The Seahawks were going to get the lead, and they're going to hold it heavy early, and they're going to run the football. That's what they did. Zach Charbonnet, 18 carries, 91 yards, 2 touchdowns. Kenneth Walker still nursing the injury. Kenny McIntosh got a little bit of run, but not enough volume to really do anything. Just a little flash on the TV. But DK Metcalf, 4 catches, 104 yards, and a touchdown. A lot of people questioning Jackson Smith-Njigba's volume. I like to look at him more in games where you get a higher over-under, more pass funnel games because of the funnel of these wide receivers on this offense. DK Metcalf's your must start every week. Tyler Lockett and Jack Smith-Njigba will be your gambles, but you'd rather take that gamble in a matchup that's going to be triggered more for the passing game. A 24-3 lead against a quarterback named Skylar Thompson, and Tim Boyle ain't going to get it done. You know Seattle's going to have the lead, so they're not going to throw the ball a lot. Devin Achane, 11 carries, 30 yards. We wanted to watch him and his workload. They did not have the lead. They had to throw the ball, but they had to throw with putrid quarterbacks. Tyreek Hill, 3 catches, 40 yards off 5 targets. None of the wide receivers got touchdowns. Jalen Waddle was ranked very low. A lot of people did not want to start him. A lot of people benched him. 4 catches, 26 yards. Eskridge is back with a catch for 30 yards off 1 target. The passing game for the Dolphins is horrible. The run game's dead. The Dolphins are dead for fantasy football unless they get Tua back or they trade for another quarterback. If Seattle's pegged to be up, you're going to want the running backs. If Seattle's going to be in a shootout, you're going to go with all the wide receivers. The Niners-Rams game had a very crazy ending. Brock Purdy, 292 yards and 3 touchdowns, safe for fantasy football. Matthew Stafford, 221 and a touchdown in this matchup. Kyren Williams keeps going off. I said he was going to get a lot of volume and just let the volume do what it does. He got the volume, and it did well for us in fantasy football with those 2 touchdowns. On top of that, Tutu Atwell emerged in this matchup. Makes sense when you think about it outside the box against a tough defense like this, using the speed on the perimeter and getting him downfield and using the yards after the catch. And you got Demarcus Robinson there. 1 ball caught, 32 yards. Jordan Whittington got 3 targets. They're spreading the ball around a little bit. Tyler Johnson, 4 targets, 3 catches, 20 yards. Again, short ADOT. We'll see that on the spreadsheet. Jauan Jennings was the show here with 3 touchdowns, 11 balls caught, 175 yards, 12 targets. He blew up on a lot of benches this week. That's understandable. Hopefully, he's a least pickup. He's going to get a lot of routes ran, a lot of targets, built more trust with Brock Purdy, and probably even with Debo back, I imagine he's going to earn more targets due to what he did this week. So he's a guy that you're going to hold on and stash even with Debo back. Jordan Mason, another okay matchup here, catching 2 balls and 11 yards, 19 carries, 77 yards. So not his best for fantasy, but still, we're looking at Jauan Jennings. He is the story of the show. Kyren Williams still being productive in fantasy football. The Detroit Lions and Arizona Cardinals was a fun matchup, and it had a higher over-under, but only hit at 33 points, so it hit the under on this matchup. Dave Montgomery, 105 rushing yards. Jahmyr Gibbs, 83 yards, and he also had that score on the hook and ladder. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 7 catches for 75 yards, 1 touchdown. He was getting a lot of work. Sam Laporta went out in this game. He got hurt in this matchup. I would not be chasing the backup tight end. I think targets are just going to flow to the other wide receivers. Looking at the receivers here for the Cardinals, Marvin Harrison Jr., 11 targets, 5 yards, 64 yards, and a touchdown. It was very quiet for this matchup on the red zone. Like, you did not see much of it. It was there in spurts, but you did see a lot of it on social media. Michael Wilson, 8 balls caught, 64 yards, good for PPR. Gray Dortch got 6 targets in this matchup. James Conner, just 17 rushing yards in this game. Kyler Murray, 207 yards, but 45 yards on the ground. Looking at this matchup, it was tight, and Arizona tried to come back, but just didn't get it done. That's the fantasy analysis from the early slate and the late slate from Sunday's games. Going over the buy-sell trades, going over what happened with these fantasy footballers on your fantasy teams. Let me know what else you saw on Sunday, considering I saw this stuff on Red Zone and just went off memory looking at the box score for the first time. I didn't study, I didn't premeditate it. First time looking at these numbers was with you guys. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Make sure to hit that subscribe button on the way out. One thing for watching. Catch you on the next video.